So what does the day in the life of a high school teacher actually look like? I don't know, it probably looks like 100 different things, but here's a day in the life of this high school teacher. So school actually starts for me way earlier than when I actually step into the classroom. Can we just hold this up for just a second? One quick thing I wanted to address. I just wanted to really quickly apologize for the focus and the coloring on the first part of this video. I thought I had it under control. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't realize how to use the focus thing. And so it's a little bit messy. But it gets better. It gets a lot better. It looks like 6K by the end of this video. So I just wanted, anyway, back at it. Action. I typically get up about 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up that early because I'm a big proponent of offense over defense. So what I mean by that is I don't want the day to happen to me, I want it to happen for me. So there's a longer video on my morning routine that you can just find linked up here somewhere, and it'll also be linked below. But the short of it is I get up in the morning at 5 a.m. I do the same exact thing every single day so that there's no guessing, so there's no figuring it out what I have to do. I go downstairs, I go through my morning routine, and I'm out the door by around 7 o'clock. On a good day, I'm 10 minutes earlier. On days where the kids wake up and they want breakfast right away, or the dog takes extra long going to the bathroom, those days take me a little bit longer to get out the door. But that has me at school by about 7:30. When I first started teaching, I came in a lot earlier. I would come in as early as the school would let me, which back in my first year was about 6 o'clock in the morning. But since I have kids now, I like to see my kids in the morning. I like to have that time at home in the morning. I find that gives me a lot more peace than actually being in the classroom. And I'm gonna show you this in a minute, but I don't leave my classroom a mess at the end of the day. 9 times out of 10, I clean everything up. I have it all set for the next day at the end of the previous day. Yes, I said that right. So that I'm not walking into a hot mess. I want it to be something that is inviting, something that makes me feel good as soon as I walk into the classroom. Now on the 1 out of 10 days, I gotta come in and there's a couple things you have to pick up, right? There's the stuff that the kids did not take home with them yesterday, the random folders and books that you have to find homes for. Typically take all that stuff, I take it to our security office and I leave it all there so I can tell the kids where it is. I used to keep a lost and found in my room, but I found that things were always lost and they were never found, so I stopped leaving them there because it just was a giant pile of crap in the corner of my room. Now look, if you're just starting out and you're a new teacher, it might help to get there early. It's nice to be in your room when it's quiet, when there's time to make copies, when there's time to sit in the peace and quiet of your room and just enjoy that time. And there are times that I'll get to school, I'll come in a little bit early and I won't let the students in right away because I'm getting stuff done. Simply put a sign on my door that says, y'all open up at 7:45, so come back then, I'll be ready to rock. Because I don't know, maybe you had a late night the night before. Maybe you had an awful night's sleep because your dog was sick or your kids were up or whatever, and you need that time in the morning to just settle in. But for me, I'm ready to get here at 7:30, open my door up right away, and if I do have a couple of things to do, that's typically what I do then. And that just might look like straightening desks, because I want my room to look picture perfect when the students walk in. So all of my desks are in rows and I like the rows to be neatly organized. I used to have tape on the floor, but the tape started coming up. So the good thing is though, I ripped all the tape up and now it just has these black marks on my floor, which look a little bit gross, but they're a little bit less inconspicuous. So I can line the desks up immediately and I don't have to figure out what row is gonna go where. Also, if I have a student help me, then they can just organize the desks as well. And it's easier for them to do it too. Then I might need to make sure that my board is clean because someone might have been in here last night or after I left. Plus, if you teach, you know that kids are always writing on your board when you're not there anyway. So you gotta clean off all their artwork and stuff all the time anyway. Then I just make sure that all of my copies are neatly organized on the front table up here so that everything's set up and it's ready for when the students walk in. Then everything we do that day always goes up on the Promethean board. I used to write it on my board, but now that I have this fancy Promethean board, I can actually keep a PowerPoint of it. So I keep it on Google Slides. I can access it anywhere that I have internet. And the perk in that, I'm hoping, is that next year I'll already have all of those PowerPoint slides already created. And they're simple, but they do take a minute to make, and it can just remind me in the coming years what I did the year before at that place in the unit. I think one of the reasons I'm ready to roll as soon as I come into the classroom is because I'm super organized. So special side note on being organized. Everything in my classroom has a space. That old adage of everything in its place and everything has its space, or something about spaces and places and everything's where it's supposed to be, is kind of like my jam. So if I need my remote to turn on the projector, I know that it's right on this shelf. I know that it's right inside this book. Just open up the book. There's the projector. remote goes right back in. It's always in there. I always know where it is. That way things don't walk either. If I need the remote for my Promethean board, it's right over here on the side of the bookshelf. Put a little bit of Velcro on the back, put a little bit of Velcro on the side of the bookshelf. Stays there. I always know where it is. Let's say you need a hand on a stick. Hand on a stick, right there on the hook on the wall. That simple. If I need paper clips and all that kind of stuff while I'm in the front of my room, all that stuff is right in these lockers in the front of the room. A stapler or tape or post-it notes or hall passes or backup staples, it's all in the central front location, so I don't have to walk to the back of the classroom. The students also all know where this stuff is, so if they need a stapler, they know where I keep it. Cleaning supplies, same thing. Paper towels, board spray, window spray, stuff to clean graffiti off desks. It's all in this one central location, so everyone knows where it is all the time. My teacher desk is no different. I like the minimum amount of stuff on my desk so that it's completely clean, neat, and organized, and you can clearly see where do things go that need to be graded? Where do things go that need to be filed? Where do things go that are just miscellaneous crap that sits around your room? All the drawers behind my desk all have clear labels so you can see what's in each thing. Need a post-it note? Need weird stuff? Need weirder stuff? Need colored pencils? Need highlighters? Need post-its? It's all in these clearly marked locations so that not just I can find them, the students can find them as well. Then it's 7:55. When that bell rings, I'm in the hallway. As much as I can be, I want to be in the hallway between every single class. I never want any time to pass where I'm not out there because I like seeing kids in the hallway. Gives me, again, a chance to check in, see what's going on, get a sense of the climate in the school, and it lets me greet my students on the way in and out of my classroom. Typically use this time to check for uniforms, make sure uniforms are correct before they come in. Otherwise, I stop you in the hallway, ask you to get yourself correct first, and then you come in. It also gives me a chance to see my colleagues. My man, Mr. Hasty's been next door to me for the last 5 years, and it gives us time to check in during the day, see how things are going, see if we need something. And we've actually become pretty good friends just by being in the hallway for those 5-minute periods in between every class every day. Now for new teachers, this is time when you will find things out that the kids don't know how you found them out. This is when gossip's getting talked about in the hallway. This is when you find out all the drama that's going on in school. And you don't even have to listen close or eavesdrop. They just talk about it super loud. The kids have no idea that you're standing there, even though I'm blowing bubbles or I'm squirting somebody with a water pistol. They still don't pick up on the idea that you're there. So you find out who broke up, who made out, who cheated on who might get into a fight after school. And then sometimes you can get in front of that stuff. So if you know a fight's going to go down later in the day, you know what's going on. You can take the appropriate measures to make sure that somebody is safe and that kind of stuff isn't going to happen. And then as soon as that bell rings, I'm in my door and I close it. If you come in after the bell, you're late. And when you're late, you lose a point if you don't have a pass. The reason behind that is I'm trying to encourage kids to get here on time. Because once that bell rings, the train is moving. And if you miss stuff because you were late, now you're not going to know what's going on in class because we're moving on. I don't go backwards once class starts. If you missed a pre-class or a journal assignment or vocabulary, then you have to come in later to get that on your own time. And a lot of kids don't do that. They don't come in later. So it's sort of building an incentive to show up on time because then you get your full credit and you get all the things that you need. Then depending on what day it is, my schedule will be different. So we have a rotating schedule, which means, so on Mondays I have periods 1 through 7 straight through. So my first period class, second period class, third period class, fourth period class, and fifth period class. Now only 2 times a year do I teach the history of hip hop. So this trimester I don't have that class. So I pick up an extra prep during those times of the year. But otherwise I teach 6 periods in a day. And most of those periods look the same. I do have a co-teacher for 2 of my classes. So I teach 3 college prep classes on my own. And I'll walk you through what those are gonna look like. And the other class I have is a co-taught class where myself and Mr. Fines co-teach the class together, but that class is almost completely planned by me. I do collaborate with him and we do work together, but he teaches 2 other classes, another co-taught class and an SAT prep class that he teaches several times a week. And since he's only been here not even a year and a half yet, like we're still kind of figuring out that model. Plus I've had something like 6 or 7 co-teachers in the last 3 years, something like that. I've really just gotten used to like doing stuff on my own. But first period typically looks something like this. Kids come in my door, they look at the PowerPoint, they see what we have to do today. And when I have pre-class on there, that means before class. That means I'm expecting that you're doing this before class. So you can still be talking, you can still be getting down with your friends, but I need you to check that board and then get what you need to get, which typically on a Monday is going to be vocabulary and journals first. Students can grab their journals from the back. So I have this box in the back, and what the kids do is they come in, They grab the box with their period name on it, and they take their journals out of it. Journals are just simple composition books, everybody's names on the front, and the period numbers on the front too. So that if they do get mixed up, I can tell what period it is and whose name is on the front as well. Kids that refuse to write their name on the front get a whole bunch of stickers on the front, like fairies and trucks and butterflies and stuff like that. And that's an incentive to remember to write your name on things. Now, the benefit of having something like this is that I don't have to organize anything. If I want someone to hand journals out, there will be a prompt on the board, or I'll ask someone when they come in, and they'll hand the journals out. They know which period it is, and they know the students in their class. At the end of class, I do not have to collect stuff. I have a student collect all of the materials, and they put them in the correct bin. So I never have to touch anything. So I can get right back into the hallway, or I can help someone with something at the end of class without worrying about collecting all the stuff that's happening in class. Now look, I have one rule in my class, and that's give respect, get respect. What I do have are a number of systems that just make things easier. The kids know every single day what I expect. They know every single day what I want them to do when they come into the room. And it almost builds a sort of muscle memory so that when you walk in the door, you're not looking around, you're not trying to find work, my room isn't chaotic looking. You know where everything is because everything has its place. Even your journal. Grab your journal, have a seat, and if it's Monday, you're gonna take out 5 note cards. So when we do vocabulary in class, I generally put the word and the definition along with the part of speech up on the PowerPoint. I always try to connect some picture that's on there to something the students would like, whether it's the Avengers or Fortnite or Pokemon, whatever the hot topic is for the moment. Because that engages the students. When they see the new sniper rifle from Fortnite up on the board, it engages them and makes them want to interact with what's up there. When Jersey Shore was the hot topic, all of my PowerPoint went along with Jersey Shore. When Pokemon Go was hot for that one summer, all of my stuff had to do with Pokemon Go. What I'm trying to do is build engagement and teach through the lens of what the students are already interested in. All the note cards have the word on one side, definition on the other, so you can quiz yourself, or you could just put it on Quizlet, but not all of my students have phones, and the students have phones don't all have data, so they can't always do that. So the note cards are just an easier way to do it. I collect all the note cards at the beginning of the year, all the blank ones, so if I have your note cards, I have them readily accessible. And the idea here is leave the kids with the least amount of responsibility when they come in. Come in without a pen, I just give you a pen. Lost your note cards, I got note cards. And I realize that there's a level of responsibility that the students need to hold. But what I don't want to do is have someone not have a supply and they're walking around the class, they're trying to figure out what to do, they just put their head down, they take the 0. I'm trying to minimize as best I can. And the way that I do that is just by keeping all of their stuff here. Vocabulary gets worked on throughout the week, and then on Friday there's always an assessment. You don't do well on the assessment, you retake it on Monday. But that retake gets done on your own time. Before school, during lunch, or after school. And then we jump into a journal entry. Journal entries are this easy. It goes in your notebook. I grade that notebook once or twice during a trimester, and there's 3 things I need to see on there. I need to see the date, I need to see the question, and I need to see your answer. The answer has to have a minimum number of questions, but all of this information is always posted over here on the wall, so that's never a mystery. So if you forget, how many sentences do we usually do? What do we have to have on the page? Because even though you taught something for 8 months doesn't mean a kid's gonna remember it. I mean, I have dudes that go on a 3-day weekend and come back, can't remember their locker combination. So I just like to minimize those questions as well by having the poster on the board. It's simple, it gets right to the point, and it's always in the same place. Vocab words, same thing. There's a spot on the wall for them. Right now it's filled with masks, but typically there's a spot on the wall for all the vocab words with the word and the definition so that the students know each week which words are being quizzed on. A quick note on why I do journal entries the way that I do them. Journal entries are a great way to engage the students, to have them write stories about themselves or about something they already know about, and to connect whatever it is you're doing in class with the student's life. And you can do this with any class. It doesn't just have to be English. But what's an engaging question that you could tie in? So maybe the question is, what song best represents you? Maybe it's, what fictional character would you like to be friends with? Or what monster would you like to be friends with? Maybe it's, tell about a time when you lost your cool, or tell about a time when you were really embarrassed. And then we take that information and we tie it into what we're reading. So if we're reading Lord of the Flies and the boys are up on the mountain and they get scared by the beast and they run down, but then they realize that the beast really isn't real. So what's a time that you were scared of something that wasn't real? You knew it wasn't real, but you were still scared of it anyway. I typically give students 5 minutes to write the journal entry. And when they're done, I ask for volunteers. Now look, certain questions are going to want to get answered by everyone, and that just doesn't work. So I have 2 ideas behind this. One is I will just pick the students that worked the best, or that were a little bit off in the beginning, but now I just kind of like hook them up because they did a good job in the end. Or I I pick one, and then I have that guy pick the next guy, and then that guy pick the next guy. So you can't get mad at me, you get mad at the other homie because, he didn't pick you. I also check that students have roughly the minimum number of sentences. I'm not gonna go around and count, but if the sentences were 5 to 8 or 8 to 10, I just peek, and if it looks like you wrote one sentence or you didn't write anything, but you just wanna talk, you don't get to participate in the activity. You have to do the work to get to present. Now, a really fun thing that you can do with journals is play music behind them. You always get these certain kids that tell the same sort of story every time. It's either an adventure story about what time they almost got in trouble, or they tell a story about sports, or they tell a story about the same girl that they liked. And when I know these dudes are coming up, I just go on YouTube, I queue up a song, and then I play the song behind the student. I've showed this in previous videos where I've showed the difference between someone just reading their journal entry and someone having music behind their journal entry, and the difference is drastic. It makes it so much more fun. The kids really lean into the journal reading then, and you'll see that they start reading with feeling when they're saying it. They'll read faster in the exciting parts, and they'll be more deliberate in the more dramatic parts. It just makes it awesome. After that, we're up for anything. It's typically I introduce a new topic that we're going to talk about that week. So maybe it's imagery or simile and metaphor or conflict or characterization. And then we'll define those things by putting the definition up on the board. We'll do a small activity to sort of like get you in the space of what that means. Sometimes I'll show a video. Oh man, Brody just snuck in the frame there too. But those activities, those opening activities are usually my favorite thing because it builds engagement. It gets kids out of their seats. It gets them out of the ordinary of what usually happens in school every day. School is largely boring every single day. You have to be somewhere on time. A lot of kids can't wear whatever they want to wear. You have to sit quietly in a seat and you can't even pee without raising your hand. The lessons aren't engaging, the reading isn't engaging, nothing fun ever happens, and then you are made to sit quietly at the ages in your life where you have the hardest time sitting quiet, and then you move from class to class without talking largely in those classes as quickly as you can from one period to the next with a minimum of talking so that you can get there on time so you can do the next pre-class, so you can do the next lesson, so you can get the next group of homework. You go to lunch, you eat something, and in a lot of schools, that stuff is crap. It's like worse than prison food. Then you go back to class, you go to practice, and in our school, I have a lot of guys that take an hour to 2 hours to get home every day on the bus. So to me, the challenge becomes, what are you as the teacher going to do to break up that day? You don't have to have lessons that are the most magical and engaging thing ever. Sometimes the class lends itself to that. Other times the class does not lend itself to that. But you can sprinkle little bits of magic on what you're doing. And sprinkling that magic can look like this. So simple ways you can do that are, last week instead of having kids draw a map of the island, we had them create them out of Legos. There's a whole new other video on that. But in short, what that allowed was like a break from like the normal things you'd see in school. We do not have money or means. I was lucky that Mr. Fines had Legos in his basement since like 1986. He brought them in, we made them. If he didn't have Legos, we would have thought of something else, but along that same vein of just disrupting the day's activities so that something fun could happen. Other cool stuff we do is blowing bubbles in class. So I have these little bubbles, looks like red drink or something like that. They're from the dollar store. Or my fancy microphone that opens up. And blow bubbles in class. It doesn't make everyone go crazy, and when you need to rein them in, you just rein them in. If I need silence in class, if I need to grab everyone's attention, I just count backwards from 5. And it works all the time. This also allows you to interview kids like, what's it like to not actually be doing any work in class? Hey, let me ask you a question. How's it feel to be late every single day of your life? Quick question for you. Is your mom gonna like that you're living in her basement for the rest of your life? We know you'll call it your apartment, and that's where you'll keep your sword collection and live with your ferret. Or maybe you'll just lie and tell girls, hey, I'm taking care of my mom. I just stay in the basement for now. But we all know the real truth. It's because you didn't do your work. Maybe play music behind the work that you're doing in class, just like you did on the journals. Maybe have cool music when the kids are coming into class. Maybe transition from one activity to another by just telling something funny that happened the night before. These kind of things like get kids out of the norm. They're not used to teachers sharing stories. You don't have to tell them about the time that your girlfriend broke up with you or your boyfriend left you, but just that funny thing that happened on the way home yesterday, or that crazy thing that happened at the bank. Or stuff like, don't you hate it when you pour a bowl of cereal, you go to pour some milk in there and like 3 drops come out? Or isn't it funny when your mom calls you to go do something as soon as you just sat down at the end of the day? It's just funny, kooky observations to transition from one thing to another. Now I want to talk about 2 more things. One, engagement, and the other, homework. The way I build engagement in class, one, is by doing funny, silly, weird stuff randomly. Maybe I'm putting tape in people's hair or staples in their hair. Maybe I'm putting stickers on their work because they're doing a really good job. Maybe I'm putting post-it notes on their desk because I want them to keep it up, or I want them to put their head up, or I'm noticing how hard they're trying. But the other way I create engagement is by timing things. I want students to know how much time a particular activity is going to take because one, I want them to know that they do not have the whole period. And two, for kids that have a hard time sitting still or being quiet or being asked to do something that's uncomfortable, they know when the out is. So look, I want to talk about this for 2 minutes. Or hey, I need everyone's attention on me and I need you to pay attention for 20 seconds while I give these instructions. Got it? All right, let's go. All right, you're going to move into small groups and I need that to happen in the next 30 seconds. Timer's going up on the board now. Then kids know how long they have. Some of your students are really going to hold on to the idea that they need to know how much time they might have in a class. So if you have students that are autistic, they get very connected to the sense that they want to know how long is this going to take? How much longer do we have to do this? And you can give them that sense of time by creating and putting timers on activities. Now look, you don't have to hold hard and fast to these. Sometimes kids need a little bit more time, or everyone's working really well and it just is taking longer than you expected. Extend the timer. Put it on your phone, silence it. I never have the timer visible because I don't want to make kids anxious. But I can just pause the timer until I feel like, all right, we have about enough time. I make the timer go off and then everyone thinks that 7 minutes was really 5 minutes and they're surprised at how much work they got done. And they're none the wiser. Now real quick, let's talk about homework. If there is homework, the homework goes on this board back here where I list. It says homework on the top, it says the period and the homework underneath. I also put homework at the bottom of my PowerPoint slide in the beginning of class. The thing is, I don't give a lot of homework. I don't really like homework. Many studies show that homework doesn't even have any real return on it, so the kids are practicing things that they're not really gaining any benefit from. And to be honest, a lot of my students travel far to get to school, and then they stay for a 7-period day from 8 to 3, then they have after-school programs, or they have sports, or they have work, and then they go all the way home, sometimes 2 hours away from the school to get home. Now, if you're getting home at 8 o'clock at night, the last thing I want you to do is do homework. I think you should have time with your friends, time with your family, time to relax. That's a personal choice, and I know a lot of other teachers that don't do it that way or don't see it that way, and that's cool. I have friends in the school that give homework every single night. I just don't want to add on to that load. So the way I usually run things is if kids didn't finish them in class, now that becomes homework. So if you were off task, if you were late to class, if you missed something, now that becomes your homework. But overall, I just don't give homework. So when we get to the end of the period, I have the students pack up their stuff, but I will literally give them like 6 seconds before the bell rings to pack up. I do not do a minute before or 2 minutes before. Occasionally that happens and you just roll with it. But the last thing you want as a teacher is to have kids that have too much time left at the end of class and it turns into a hot mess. If that does happen, I take my biggest offenders, kids that have a really hard time sitting down, kids that have a really hard time like not touching someone else or not getting into some sort of mischief, and I just give them a job. I'll even give them jobs that aren't even necessary. Hey, can you take that crate of books up to the 2nd floor and put it in the closet? Even though next period, I'm gonna have some kid go up and get them from the closet. Hey, can you go dump that trash can for me? Hey, can you clean the board for me? Yo, would you mind running to the office real quick and getting 15 copies of this particular thing made for me? And then that's that. So the question is, if that's a period, what do I do with the rest of the day? Let's talk about that real quick. So in teaching periods 1 through 5 currently, that means I have periods 6 and 7 off. In the middle of the day somewhere, I usually sneak out and get coffee. I have K-Cups at school. I don't like using them because I like to just get out of the building for a minute. And that's worth $2 to me every day. Plus, you know, I'm a rich YouTuber and a public servant, so I'm balling. After my last class, I typically go to the office. I usually hang out with Cho for a little bit, try and get a sense of what's going on in the building. If there were any problems with students that day, if someone misbehaved in class, if I had an issue with the cell phone, there was a fight or a potential fight or an argument that I needed to bring to her attention. Cho is my 9th grade dean. She's been in the videos before. So much smaller than I am. Here, I'll try and do this. How do you get to know kids?
I mess with them and I scare them, and then they for some reason like me anyway. And then they share information. I don't really know what that formula is for me.
We're like twins if twins were completely opposite.
Yes, Reynolds.
How much taller I am than you?
Why do you have to rub that in?
I don't know.
I'm Asian.
Oh.
I'll usually go to the office and touch base with her. And then we'll come up with some sort of course of action on what to do next with that. In the middle of my day, I also have lunch. So I'll actually teach my 3 first periods. Then there's like a 25-minute lunch period, and that is spent with my students in my classroom. I never eat lunch out. I never leave my classroom to go eat lunch. I don't eat in the office or in the teacher's lounge or anything, because that's a time to really get to know my students, to engage with them, to talk with them, to find out what's going on in the school. And I'm also creating a safe space for students that don't want to eat in the lunchroom, that don't make friends very easily, that are introverted. This gives them a safe, quiet space to eat or to just hang out during that time. And then in that last period and a half is when I get all of my work done. All of my grading is done and put into the grade book immediately. The work goes from that front table to those files that are in the back that say to grade, to file, and miscellaneous. All the stuff that's in the to grade gets graded, it gets put into the file bin, and then it gets filed away later when I have a moment to do that. This is when all my copies get made. This is when any parent phone calls that need to be made get made. This is when special ed paperwork gets done. It's only during those 2 periods. Then at the end of the day, I don't take anything home. I don't bring anything to work except for my jar of disgusting kale juice that I drink every day and my protein bar. But almost never do I take paperwork home. I don't even take my school computer home. It gets locked in the classroom at the end of the day. Now look, when you start teaching, inevitably you're going to have to take things home. You're not going to be able to just keep all of your stuff at school. And that's fine. But after 14 years, I have things on such a system that I don't need to do that anymore. And it's a real relief because then I can get home and spend time with my kids and my friends and stuff. So when the end of the day bell goes off, I end up back in the hallway. The hallway's generally packed with students because everybody's leaving for the day, but not everyone actually leaves for the day. They all want to hang out in your room after school anyway. And so we do that. Fines and I are in my room at the end of the day, hanging out with students until however late that needs to take place. And we just want to make sure that we see everyone off. When that's done, the work in my room begins. But that has a system also, and I never like anything to take too long. So it's the end of the day. I clean up everything that I can clean up. I have students that will help me wash my board sometimes, or that will clean up trash for me. I make sure all the bins in the back are in the place that they're supposed to be in. I make sure that things that are graded are put away. Things that need to be graded are in the correct bin. Markers, paper, pencils, all that stuff are in the cabinets where they're supposed to be in the back of the classroom. I make sure that my desk is as clean as it can be in the front, and that I even wipe it down at the end of the day if I have time. The desk in the back of the room is as organized as it can be, and things are at least in their place. Not everything has to be done. There's always ongoing business in education. What you don't want is unfinished business at the end of the day. That's the stuff that haunts you. That's the stuff that bothers you when you go home at the end of the night. And then, if you watch my Instagram, at the end of the day, I give 3 students a ride home every day. Kent, Cheesesteak, and Cephas. Cephas broke his foot last year and he had to get metal rods put into it. So he's a big dude and I don't want him to have to walk all the way home. So I just give him a ride.
Today on Big Guy Little Car. Stevens is so mad because Cheesesteak can't even move his legs up any further.
Because he got in the front. Why you get in the front? I'm 6'2.5". You're like 5'11". You can't get in the front.
Cephas, trying to get in the car. Come on, you can do it.
Come on.
I can't pull my seat up anymore. I have to drive.
I don't need this.
Just lay across the seat or something like that.
Their moms know about it, the school knows about it, and everyone watches us on Instagram every day anyway. But that conversation about driving students is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother video. Look, I've waited a long time to make this video because it's just an overwhelming amount of information. There's a ton of stuff that I didn't tell you, a ton of stuff that I could talk about. But that's what this channel's for. It's like 300 videos of how to kind of do all of this stuff as a teacher. So I have 2 asks before you go, and it's not to like and subscribe the video, that's up to you. What I would ask is that you become part of the community that's here on YouTube by leaving a comment below that says something that maybe you do something a little bit different than I talked about. Maybe you like something or dislike something. Maybe you have a further question about something that not only I can answer, but all the great people that are watching this video can answer as well. Maybe you could go below and someone else post a question or made a point that you agree or disagree with or have an answer to that you could put below as well. And then keep in mind that we also have a Facebook now. Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk on Facebook is a closed group. You go on, you answer a few simple questions because we want to make sure that the people that are coming into the group are actually in the education space and they're not trying to sell you something and there's not some parent that's trying to keep an eye on you teach. And you know who I'm talking about. But it's a great safe space for educators to be able to help other educators. You can find the link to that and all of our social media accounts and the website and all that stuff below. And that's it, everybody. Peace. And who is your leader?
Project.
You guys still talking about that?
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good, man.
Reynolds, who you talking to?
Nobody. Pay attention to your work.